Hello and welcome to the State of Salesforce Implementations, or SOS for short. We are going to be chatting with different thought leaders in the Salesforce space and beyond about how Salesforce implementations are going to change over the years and what it is the challenges that we face in the current state of affairs. SOS! I'm Ines Garcia, all things Agile and Salesforce. Speak with me also about marketing, circular economy, sustainability, climate, biomimicry, even permaculture. We also have today
Christian Jorgensen. I'm a solution architect with Wake, an IBM company. I help and challenge organizations to scale and implement Salesforce. I am also the author of the Salesforce End-to-End Implementation Handbook. And with me also
is Francis Pinder, and I am founder of Admin to Architect and Net Stronghold, and I've trained over 100,000 people, or 130,000 I think now, in 160 countries on Salesforce. And if you're an admin and developer and you're listening to this and you're interested in becoming an architect, then head to admintoarchitect.com/scorecard and you can find out if you've got the stuff to become an architect. And also, we have on the call.
And I am Lars Malmqvist, partner at Implement Consulting Group, a long-term veteran of the Salesforce ecosystem, certified technical architect, and author of the book Salesforce Anti-Patterns.
Today, you are up for a treat with our guest, a proper product person. LJ, with almost 2 decades in products across several sectors, including production, professional services, finance, software as a service, and media. Of course, some Salesforce related, and this is somehow how we met. Even last year discussing about carbon accounting. Why not? Now, senior product manager at Lumia. Yes, that add-on that handles subscriptions for commerce. Also, I know that it's been a very interesting project on Salesforce, Marketing Cloud, and Zuora. LJ, tell us a bit more about yourself and what you do every day.
Thank you for the kind intro, Ines. Yes, so I've been in product. I fell into product nearly 20 years ago, which sounds like a really long time. And I started out my career in a streaming platform as a service company before people had internet in their houses or broadband, and you had to have the dial-up sound going on in the background. So that's really where I started product. And then moved on to do product for agencies, so working in different sectors, as Ines has mentioned. And most recently, I've been working with big organizations that want to modernize their tech stack, doing digital transformation projects, and hence getting into working with Salesforce and Zuora and Lumia and all these wonderful tech companies that enable publishers and other sort of subscription companies to modernize and really own their data.
This is a series on Salesforce implementations. And I guess a good way to try to get the ball rolling is just to sort of ask you what, from your perspective, working with product over a number of years and looking at the Salesforce ecosystem, what are some of the key challenges that you see organizations having, and what are some of the real pain points?
Yeah, I think the key challenges that I've seen is that when you get the pitch, the Salesforce pitch, it's great and it can do everything and it's this wonderful tool that is going to solve all your problems. And it can, but it is software as a service, so it's not really bespoke to your needs, by which I mean that it's generalist, right? Because it solves a use case that will work for all of their clients. And if you want something quite specific to what you need, then you have to build something around that, or you have to change your processes to kind of fit what the tool can do. And I think that's a shock sometimes that people don't expect, because when you see something new, you expect it to do whatever you want to do, but then obviously there are constraints which you don't really know about until you get into the detail of what you want to do. So it's understanding that initially so that you don't get the shock afterwards, and also not realizing the volumes and the impact that might have on cost. So things like storage and calls and things like that, sometimes that gets underestimated. And another pain point that I've seen are the seasonal releases and the impact that might have on your product and how it works, and also your workload if you're not expecting it. And again, it's just having all that information ahead of time to really understand kind of what you're getting yourself, your organization into.
And do you think Salesforce is particularly bad in this regard, vis-a-vis some of the other platforms out there, in terms of setting unrealistic expectations?
I think that when you're having a conversation with someone, and this is not just Salesforce, but everything is very happy path, right? You don't think about all the scenarios that might arise because that's not the mindset that you have at the time. So I don't think it's something that is Salesforce specific. I think it's with any platform, but also any tech project that's starting. You're always thinking about the end goal and how great it's going to be, without thinking about the path to get there.
That sort of makes me think about that tension that you see on expectations and then how you get there on that path, about the visible stuff that everybody can have an opinion because it's visible. So new segments, features, even how a marketing email may look like, right? Versus everything else. The everything else matters. The everything else is our scalability, usability, security, test automation, DevOps, and even validation of the APIs, right? So
yes,
how
exactly.
do you manage, as a proper product person today, this tension? It can be easy.
It reminds, that image of the iceberg where you see just the tip, and then underneath the ocean, you see the huge sort of ice block that you're going to crash into. And it's that, right? It's what you see is very little compared to what needs to happen in order to achieve that. And I like to work on vertical slices, so involving everyone that might need to be considered for something to be shipped, and also starting from what the user really needs. So what is the problem that we're trying to solve? Like, rather than, I've seen it in a lot of places that you start thinking about the technical solution for something when actually a user's need might be met by something quite simple. But working with the focus on what the problem that you're trying to solve is, and working in cross-functional teams to really understand how everyone is going to work together to solve that problem, is the best way that I've seen to get something out quickly, but also to satisfy the problem that you're trying to solve. And it's interesting, that you mentioned quality and testing and all because it's not just about front end and back end, like security and compliance, and testing is such an important part of what you're building, because you might spend more time testing and invest more in that, but the end result is so much better. I used to work in a place where we didn't call our testers QA, where in a lot of places they do, because quality was everyone's responsibility. And we invested a lot in testing. So in a team I worked on that had 6 developers, we had 4 testers. And that ratio is not something that you tend to see. But the result of that was that this was for the app business, and we developed mobile apps. Whenever we had a new release in the App Store or the Play Store, there were hardly any bugs. The testing was so rigorous that you just shipped and it was fine. And it just it means that you can concentrate on evolving the product rather than fixing things that go wrong. So by investing in the whole tech stack, you end up with something that's a lot better.
That makes me wonder, what sort of tools or structure do you use or put in place to manage the product and the evolution, right? Because you mentioned various numbers of stakeholders, development teams, users, and so on. How do you make that all come together?
A lot of lists. So communication is key, and you have to communicate in the way that resonates with the different stakeholder groups. So I tend to opt for something visual, like a user story map, for example, that you can easily see what needs to happen for each of the epics, and then when things are going to be phased in, and have something that is quite easy to digest at first sight, but have the detail behind it, so that if you need to kind of drill into it, then you can.
We're keen in development to use Jira or Trello or whatever to manage a board, or and what other tools might there be for, let's say, a more advanced product organization where you have different stakeholder groups? Are there other tools that you use?
Yeah. I've also used Notion, which is great. It gives a lot of flexibility for you to build the boards in the way that you want them and be able to filter the relevant data. And Miro as a great visual collaboration tool. I have a love affair with Miro, I think.
Awesome.
How about the behavioral or the human sort of tools and structures? Any in particular, so it helps you to pull everybody together or even to manage that budget, right? How do you get 4 QAs on a team and,
Yeah, I mean, it was all a lot easier when everyone was always in the office, and we used to huddle around a board, and we'd have everything kind of printed out on walls, and people would just kind of gravitate towards that central place where all the information was. And then the conversations that were had were just so rich, and capturing those and distilling them and putting them in a format that would be easily shareable. So having regular sort of updates and summarizing those conversations and the changes and the new things and the progress that's happening in a way that is engaging, so that people don't just turn off and actually don't listen and don't digest the things that are relevant to them, but either calls or face-to-face catch-ups, or even just a deck that might just be really easily readable and contain everything that's important. And also Loom videos I find really useful to kind of get that information across, and then you can show what you mean. And so there's I use a variety of tools.
Yeah, visuals, tools, multiple different ways. People digest things in many ways, right? Yeah. The tools are there to serve us. Sometimes we get so obsessed with tools that we forget why we're doing things.
Exactly.
So we talked a lot about product organizations and things like this, but actually just going back to the basics, what is a product organization in your mind?
For me, a product organization is one that focuses on the user and what problems can we help with, and how can we help in the quickest way. How can we not over-engineer it so that we know that what we're doing is helpful before investing more into that, and learning quickly rather than trying to get something perfect before shipping it.
Okay, cool. So, but also, I'm assuming that isn't necessarily a tech solution, right? It is all-encompassing how that user interacts, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And there might be ways that you can solve things without tech. Maybe it's a customer service agent helping them through something manually rather than building something, just to first understand how much that something is needed before actually doing something about it.
And measuring the outcome, I suppose. Yeah, seeing if it is. Yeah, and I've had even in my own experience doing projects, and it's you're doing the agile, pushing little bits out, and then you suddenly think it's this big project, and actually no, that solved the answer, right? For the user. And you're like, okay, well, we won't do the rest of it then because they've got what they need. We thought it was a lot bigger than we thought, but
yeah.
That makes me think what we spoke in the past before, right? Of perfectionism, because there is this very fine line of getting things perfect and getting things out there, right? So what is your take? Because I know that you're particularly quite specific on the matter. So for the ones that doesn't know.
Yeah, I think ship early and test and see if it's worth building more on top of that. And I think that's where tools like Salesforce and platforms just come in really handy, because out of the box you can get 80% there for you, and 80% might be enough, or 80% might not be enough, but you won't know until it's out there. And sometimes and I get it with big companies where they have a reputation that they want to maintain, and shipping something that's less, or what might be deemed less than perfect, is not acceptable. But there are ways to test without just over-engineering and overbuilding, without knowing that.
I think it's also like reducing the impact as well, right? So it's kind of like, well, if you are releasing it into production, then actually only give a certain business unit access to that functionality to test it, right? And though even if you are in this big organization, then you're still seeing if it works, or you break the whole company.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And I think, and then sometimes when you start overthinking what you're shipping, you end up in a place where you're so scared to ship because there's not quite enough there, that you're just paralyzed. And it's getting over that paralysis and that fear that is really daunting, right? But it's something that you need to do in order to get that muscle of, let's just test and learn and ship and do the things quickly.
I think that reminds me of someone who once said, if you're not embarrassed by your first release, you're shipping too late. Something like that. Do you adhere to that?
Well, again, it's a balance. I think back to my earlier, having a really thorough team that tests and that cares about the quality, like the whole team caring about the quality. You wouldn't want to ship something that's broken, but something that's small that works and solves a problem. Yes, absolutely.
Cool.
It's almost like that kind of like perception, different people's perceptions of the problem and the solution for it. And the end user is almost like, sometimes it's so simple. It's like, I just want a button that deep links into another system. That's it, right? That's my integration. That solves the problem for me. And rather than this big, massive integration that's in my head thinking, oh, we need to do data transformations and do all this. And actually, no, it's just a button. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Starting there and testing and see if it, it's kind of, interesting.
Yeah.
So, LJ, over the 20 years you have in the industry, right? I wonder, this notion of product organizations and product owner and so on, it wasn't quite as ubiquitous, I imagine, back then when you were starting out, compared to now. How do you see that, how that's changed, and how many organizations have adopted this notion of product organizations?
I think everyone fancies themselves as a product organization, right? And again, it's a fine line between being a product organization and being agile than just doing agile things, agile ceremonies for the sake of ceremonies. And it's hard to know the difference when you're in it until you've seen it, if that makes sense. It really is an attitude and a mindset rather than meetings in a calendar and regular releases. It's about shipping and learning and having the mindset that actually, if it's wrong, you should pivot rather than just going down a route that isn't right. And that can be quite scary, especially when you're a big organization, which is why sometimes I'm just thinking, if I say this, will my ex-clients be...
We can edit it out, it's fine. Or not, the case might be.
Yeah. No, and I think it's hard for a big company to become agile. It's something that happens slowly, and it's really a culture shift. And you need to get that culture right before growing it out, if that makes sense. So embedding those ways of working in the whole org before trying to grow up a function, for example, because it's the foundations. And once you have that right, then you can scale, and then the whole org will be product driven. But if you just grow at the same time as trying to get those foundations, then it just becomes a lot more difficult, because you have to instill that change in lots of different pockets of teams and people.
So what sort of indicators do you have to tell you that you're reaching that tipping point so that you can grow?
I think when you have real self-organizing teams that are delivering what you expect them to be delivering, then you are safe to grow, because there's enough people there that can help other people come along on that journey.
And when you say when they deliver what you expect them to deliver, is that, how do you define that expectation? Is that the product goals that are stated, or how? Because who is expecting something, right? Yeah.
Yes. And
is it management or the users, or who do you when you say expect, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, for every company, there should be a really clear vision and mission, and product should align to that. And then what you're helping solve for the users should also talk to that. And that's where, so it all starts from the North Star. And I think also that's where you see real product companies where there's a focus that everyone can kind of rally around, rather than 5 different focuses and you don't really know what the priority is and you're pulled from one place to another.
What? Everything is a priority.
Yes, when everything is a priority, nothing is a priority.
It's a must-have. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do you link? Do you have any particular way that you like to manage that? So from the vision, from the organization sort of like plans or OKRs, objective key results, how do you make sure things are like tied back together? That ain't easy.
No, it's not easy. And yeah, I'm just trying to think of when I've seen it done well. Yeah, when have I seen it done well? It's been easier in smaller companies because the communications are often easier, and you get to collaborate more with other members of the teams, and it's quicker to align. In bigger organizations, you have to have the frameworks in order to do this, whereas in smaller companies, it can happen quite organically.
So how does that work? So say if you're on that kind of journey of moving to a product organization, but especially with Salesforce, it's kind of the hub of sales, marketing, service, but maybe not all those teams are in at that point yet. How do you kind of start along that road, I suppose, when you've got these tentacles going into different parts of the organization that aren't kind of with that same mindset?
Yeah, I start with a team, like a core team, and once they're comfortable with the way of working, with product, with solving problems and iterating and learning, and invite people from marketing, for example, and get them involved in that, and then give them the tools to help put those processes in place, maybe in the department, or do like lunch and learns, or ways of working, but frame them so that they are like, how is that going to solve, I don't know, a problem within the marketing team and how they work, for example, rather than just say, this is a great way of working, you should try it. Think about, what the pain points are in the marketing. What do they need help with? And maybe introduce little elements that help with that.
Okay.
So if we consider some of the organizations that are a little bit perhaps on the slower part of the adoption curve, right, that are not really, they don't, aren't ready to commit to becoming a product organization. They maybe are only starting out on a journey to adopt a platform like Salesforce or things like that. Are any parts of this mindset relevant for them? If we imagine that I'm just, going in and I'm going to implement Salesforce for the first time in a B2B company that's not got a great digital legacy, are there ways in which you can sort of use some of these ways of thinking to actually improve their overall culture and mindset as you're doing this initial digital transformation work for them, or is it kind of it's too soon and you should really wait?
I think, there's no time like the present, and there might just be like smaller ways that you can start introducing that change the way that they work. But I think it's applicable to any situation. In my home life, I think about how can we implement these things, like with my child, but and never too soon. But and again, it comes back to knowing what the problems are and what is the biggest priority that should be tackled. Is it communication? Do departments not communicate well with each other? Then figure out ways of having a board with the work that is really visible and radiates information might help with that. Or is it that people are working in silos? So how can you bring them together to work more cross-functionally? But as with any change, it's a slow drip before it starts, because people are scared of change and are resistant to change. So the better way is to show how it helps them, but also to do it gradually.
Yeah.
And I think also sometimes they don't even know the problems, and just I kind of do a little sometimes a kind of thing like this: the 100 problems. We're just getting in a room and just coming up with all these different problems. I go, oh, actually, that's the same as you. Oh, okay, let's sort this, fix it,
Yeah.
And because I've always done it that way. Why would I ever want to change,
Yeah.
But it's impacting a customer, or it's impacting, the adoption or whatever it may be, So, just kind of figuring it out is always good, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, throwing
Absolutely.
people into a room, that's one of my favorite things. Great things can happen.
Exactly.
Close the door, leave them there. Good luck.
The Post-it notes, pens, off you go.
So in terms of organizations sort of becoming product organizations, are there any ways that you frequently see them go wrong? Are there sort of systematic ways in which organizations get this wrong that are worth sharing?
I think just putting in, like, working in sprints, doing planning and all the other ceremonies, but not really understanding the purposes of those ceremonies, and just going through the motions, and then thinking, I'm a product org, but I'm not shipping. So why? And then it's Agile's fault. Yes, it's a mindset thing, isn't it? And just following a set of rules doesn't help change a mindset.
No. I call that zombie agile. You go through the motions without the emotions, and you're just missing out.
Yeah.
So if you could, for those listening and are interested in moving more to a product organization, what would be the one thing that they could do right now to learn more?
To learn more about becoming,
or not even learn more, or to move down that track of understanding what a product organization is and how you get in that mindset. Because I think we talked a lot about mindset and agile. I know agile, but actually, am I doing zombie agile or not? I don't know.
I'd say ask why. Why do you want to be a product organization, and what makes you think you're not, and what is the problem that you're trying to solve? Just always go back to that. But then also think about, talk to other people who have done this and who you see and who do it well, and see what they do, which might not necessarily work for your team because every team is different. But then also talk to your team about what their experiences are, because you have a wealth of knowledge there. You are hiring these people because they are experts in what they do and because of all their knowledge and experience. So draw on them and figure out how you can all improve as a company together.
I mean, that's beautiful, tapping to the existing potential. And as a, freelance contractor, I empathize, and LJ, it's great that you bring that, because most often the knowledge, the skill, the ideas are there. It's just, it's how you can tap into them and give them the opportunity to flourish.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You'd be surprised at what people can do when they're given the chance.
All right. And with that, I think it's time we hop into the Q&A.
What way is the Q&A?
All right, cool. We did it. Thank you. So as we're giving the chance for people to come over into the Q&A, I think maybe Francis is doing some of his magic. So one of the things I can probably get us started, one of the things that has been lingering at the back of my mind is, as we spoke about prioritizations quite a bit, like finding out what the problem really is, and then, prioritize ruthlessly. Is there any sort of particular questions that you have in your back pocket that works really well? Like I was speaking earlier this morning about, does it have to be? Does it have to be now? Does it have to be me?
Yeah, what's the impact? What happens if this doesn't happen? Is the world going to crash? Are we losing lots of sales? Are we losing lots of users? Or is it just an inconvenience for the user? And then also, what else needs to be done? Because if nothing else needs to be done, then it might be okay that it's just this not such a valuable thing, but something that is wanted. But if there are 5 other things to be done, where does it stand against those?